If you're not with me, then you're my enemy.
Only a Sith deals in absolutes.
In Revenge of the Sith, during one of the most climactic moments in the saga, Obi-Wan Kenobi confronts his former apprentice, Anakin Skywalker, now Darth Vader, on the fiery shores of Mustafar. Their once strong bond now shattered by betrayal. Obi-Wan utters a line that has become a topic of deep philosophical debate. Only a Sith deals in absolutes. At first glance, this statement seems to be an outright condemnation of absolute thinking, a clear moral judgment in the heat of battle. But if we take a step back, it also appears paradoxical. Obi-Wan himself seems to be making an absolute claim in order to denounce absolutism. To understand Obi-Wan's statement, we must first explore what it means to deal in absolutes. In philosophy, moral absolutism is the belief that certain actions or principles are universally right or wrong, independent of context, culture, or personal belief. According to this view, there are moral laws that apply to all people, in all situations, at all times. This contrasts with moral relativism, which suggests that what is right or wrong depends on the cultural, societal, or personal circumstances surrounding the action. For example, a moral absolutist might say that killing is always wrong, no matter the reason. A relativist, on the other hand, would argue that the morality of killing could depend on factors like self-defense, cultural context, or intention. Absolutism, then, tends to draw hard, unyielding lines. This might be what Obi-Wan is criticizing when he accuses the Sith of dealing in absolutes. The Sith, like Anakin, have fallen into a rigid, uncompromising worldview, one that sees the universe in black and white, with no room for nuanced debate or middle ground. But is Obi-Wan's statement itself an absolute? Does his condemnation of absolutism reveal a deeper contradiction in the Jedi philosophy? To explore this further, we need to look at the moral frameworks of the Jedi and the Sith. The Jedi, as peacekeepers of the galaxy, advocate for balance, self-discipline, and the rejection of passion and attachment. They follow a strict moral code that values the greater good over individual desires. In this way, the Jedi philosophy seems flexible, built on principles of contextual thinking, empathy, and ethical deliberation. However, this does not mean the Jedi are without absolutes. They believe in the inherent danger of emotion, particularly fear, anger, and attachment, believing these are the seeds that lead to the dark side. In this sense, the Jedi's rejection of certain emotions as universally harmful could be seen as a form of moral absolutism. The Sith, on the other hand, embrace power, passion, and the pursuit of individual will. Their philosophy is rooted in the belief that strength comes from the full embrace of one's emotions, particularly those that the Jedi forbid. In the Sith view, moral codes that deny emotion are not only unnatural, but also limit potential. Yet the Sith also adopt a rigid stance. The universe, to them, is driven by power dynamics, domination, and control. There is no room for weakness or compromise. Only the strong survive and the weak perish. In this sense, both the Jedi and the Sith operate within their own absolutist frameworks, even if they present themselves as opposing each other. When Obi-Wan tells Anakin, "Only a Sith deals in absolutes," he is responding to Anakin's transformation into Darth Vader, a shift from a compassionate, conflicted Jedi into someone who sees the world in stark binaries, good or evil, for him or against him. In the moments leading up to this confrontation, Anakin has been seduced by Palpatine's manipulation, convinced that the only way to save the galaxy is through absolute power and control. Anakin declares, "If you're not with me, then you're my enemy." Anakin's thinking has become polarized, leaving no room for dialogue or understanding. He now believes that moral complexity is a weakness, and anyone who opposes him is an enemy, regardless of their reasons. It's in this context that Obi-Wan criticizes absolutes, not necessarily as a rejection of universal moral truths, but as a rejection of the rigidity with which Anakin now approaches the world. For Obi-Wan, the tragedy of Anakin's fall lies in his inability to see nuance, to recognize that moral decisions often lie in the gray areas, rather than in the extremes of light and dark. But is Obi-Wan right to denounce absolutism in this way? Or does this claim conceal a deeper tension within the Jedi philosophy? Philosophically speaking, Obi-Wan's statement touches on a classic debate between absolutism and relativism. One approach, deontological ethics, aligns with moral absolutism. This view holds that certain moral rules, like do not lie or do not kill, are universal and must be followed, regardless of the situation or consequences. According to this view, moral duties are universal and must be adhered to, no matter the situation. In contrast, consequentialism suggests that the morality of an action depends on its outcomes rather than adhering to strict rules. From this perspective, actions like lying or even killing could be morally acceptable if they lead to a greater good or positive result. When Obi-Wan criticizes Anakin's absolutism, he may be advocating for a form of moral flexibility similar to consequentialism, where actions should be judged based on their effects, not by adherence to rigid, unyielding principles. However, the Jedi's own strict rules, such as their rejection of attachment or their insistence on emotional detachment, show that they too operate within an absolutist framework. The Jedi teach that certain emotions inevitably lead to the dark side, implying an absolute moral truth about the dangers of emotion. This leads to a contradiction. If only a Sith deals in absolutes, isn't Obi-Wan's statement itself an absolute? This paradox suggests Obi-Wan's critique is not about rejecting all absolute beliefs, but about cautioning against rigid, dogmatic thinking, especially when it leads to the moral certainty that Anakin displays. So, what are we to make of Obi-Wan's claim that only a Sith deals in absolutes? On one level, it may be a critique of the Sith's moral dogmatism and their failure to see the world beyond their rigid power structures. On another level, it may serve as a warning to all of us. That moral certainty can lead to dangerous extremes if we refuse to acknowledge complexity, ambiguity, and the possibility of other perspectives.